Imagine Gotham City as a completely unchecked free market. In this environment, villains exploit the lack of rules. Poison ivy floods the streets with toxic energy drinks, a demerit good that harms consumers. Meanwhile, Mr. Freeze hoards all the heating supplies, restricting access to essential goods. In a standard market analysis, supply meets demand at an equilibrium price. But when the free market naturally produces too many harmful products or too few necessities, the result is what economists call a market failure. An unregulated market doesn't correct for social harm on its own. To fix these imbalances, a central authority, in our case, Batman, has to step in and manually adjust the market conditions. If mapping government intervention, start with a clean baseline. Label the vertical axis P for price, horizontal axis Q for quantity. Draw your downward demand curve, upward supply curve, and mark their intersection as your initial free market equilibrium, P1 and Q1. Correcting these market failures requires Batman to treat economic policies as specific gadgets in his belt, shifting supply and demand curves to force a safer outcome. The first gadget is the indirect tax. This is a tax levied on goods and services rather than a person's income. Batman targets Poison Ivy's toxic drinks by forcing her operation to pay the government a fee for every single unit she produces. The tax adds production costs, shifting the supply curve upwards from S1 to S2. At the new equilibrium, consumer price jumps to 19 and quantity drops to 22. The exact tax value is the vertical distance between supply curves, exactly €6. An exam tip: this chart shows total government tax revenue. Calculate it by multiplying the per-unit tax by the new quantity sold. It forms the green shaded rectangle, bordered by the higher consumer price and the lower price producers keep. By driving up the price, the tax successfully reduces the consumption of the toxic drinks. But its true effectiveness depends on how easily the producer can pass that extra tax burden on to the citizens. For positive interventions, Batman uses subsidies. A subsidy is a financial payment from the government to a firm designed to lower their production costs. He deploys this tool to quickly encourage the mass production of healthy, life-saving antidotes. Government covers costs, shifting the supply curve right. The new equilibrium makes the antidote affordable and increases consumption. But remember, this shaded rectangle is total government expenditure. Subsidies cost massive taxpayer money, creating huge opportunity costs. Subsidies are highly effective for promoting merit goods that benefit society, but they put a heavy drain on the city's resources. When Mr. Freeze violently corners the heating supply market during a brutal winter storm, prices skyrocket completely out of reach. To stop this, Batman deploys a maximum price or price ceiling. This is a legal limit on how high a price is allowed to go. For a maximum price to actually work, it must be set below the natural free market equilibrium. If it's set above, the market simply ignores it. At this artificially low price, everyone can afford heating supplies, but producers refuse to manufacture enough. Quantity demanded exceeds quantity supplied, creating a severe shortage. The city must rely on rationing or long queues for limited heat. On the flip side, we have the minimum price, or price floor. This is a legal baseline used to protect vulnerable suppliers, like establishing a minimum wage so workers aren't exploited by greedy employers. Conversely, a minimum price only has an impact if it is set strictly above the natural equilibrium price. Because the price is kept artificially high, desperate suppliers flood the market with goods, or in this case, workers seeking jobs. But demand drops. The quantity supplied now exceeds the quantity demanded, resulting in a massive surplus. Price controls address affordability directly, yet they prevent the market from reaching a clearing point, replacing high prices with structural shortages and surpluses. Every tool in the economic utility belt comes with a cost. Indirect taxes take a larger percentage of income from the poor, acting as a regressive penalty. Subsidies eat up the public budget, and price controls inevitably create allocation nightmares. And sometimes the interventions just don't work as intended. This chart compares supply shifts against different types of demand. Notice diagram A. If citizens are physically addicted to Poison Ivy's drinks, their demand is highly inelastic. A tax shifts the supply and raises the price, but the actual quantity demanded barely drops at all. Let's review the mechanics. An indirect tax shifts the supply curve left. A subsidy shifts it right. A maximum price sits below equilibrium, causing shortages, and a minimum price sits above equilibrium, causing surpluses. Economic intervention is a calculation of trade-offs, a choice of which market side effects a society will tolerate to correct a greater failure.